in cases where you can't kick Shakespeare off the syllabus or can't kick off Ernest Hemingway or whatever, people will do what they call like disrupting the text. Everyone is left of center. Everyone is trying to look left of center. It just creates these neuroses where if you had like an actual contingency of conservative editors, of agents, of what have you, a lot of the stuff that ends up getting institutionalized in these places, it just wouldn't get institutionalized because there'd be enough people who would be like, no,
Yeah.
this is insane, we're not doing that.
I just find this whole thing disturbing because reading is so vital for one's fundamental education. That's why I keep saying maybe you should just go back to the classics. If you had a magic wand and you can wave the wand to fix this problem, what would you do?
I think that should give us courage, exposure to other people's perspectives.
Moving us in a good direction.
Adam, what happened to the publishing industry?
Yeah, so basically around the same time that people noticed wokeness, political correctness, whatever you want to call it, affecting college campuses, like early 2010s, there was something very analogous happening inside publishing, especially the mainstream publishers like Penguin Random House, HarperCollins, etc. And basically what happened was you started to see books getting canceled in the same way, Charles Murray gets canceled when he goes to campus. And this was children's books, it was young adult books, it was books written for adults. It eventually made its way into like the New York Times, where New York Times journalists were demanding like sensitivity readers and things like that. But the common denominator was this was progressives accusing other progressives of essentially not being progressive enough. So in some cases you saw,
Imagine that.
yeah, imagine it. You saw books get quite literally canceled. Like I know people use that as sort of a metaphor, but an advanced reading copy circulates, someone takes a picture of it and they're like, this passage is racist or transphobic. And then next thing you know, the publisher's canceling it. And one of the things that I became super interested in was essentially like, if I'm seeing this shit from the outside as someone who doesn't work in publishing, then surely there has to be other layers of censorship going on behind closed doors. Like surely this is affecting acquisition practices and editing policies. So yeah, I spent a few years interviewing people really in every corner, from presidents and vice presidents at like the big five publishers to editors to marketers to even spoke with sensitivity readers, people who are hired to make books more sensitive.
I should be a sensitivity reader. I should be a sensitivity reader. That'd be
You
a
could.
perfect job for me.
Yeah.
I don't know how long I'd
You
last.
understand
Okay.
the vocabulary well.
So what is the impetus fueling this? Like, why? So what's going on? What were the criteria? I think Ricky Schlott talked a little bit about this in her book with Greg Lukianoff. What is the impetus fueling this, and what criteria do they invoke to determine whether or not a book gets canceled or an author gets canceled?
Yeah, so I think that the impetus is probably multifold. I'm very sympathetic to the kind of argument put forth by people like Musa Al-Gharbi that like a lot of the shit that you see, whether you call it wokeness or political correctness or what, it kind of just looks like intra-elite sort of status competition, particularly, during times when it's hard to get certain kinds of jobs, whether it's in academia or publishing. So in the publishing stuff, a lot of it does kind of look like jealousy, like someone finally gets a book deal, maybe they get a 6-figure book deal. Next thing you know, other writers, et cetera, are accusing them of, fill in the blank moral transgression. But yeah, as far as the actual cases go themselves, I've looked at these books. I've seen how the cancellations unfold. These books themselves, they're about as radical as, a bake sale. It's not like there's some huge contingency of conservative novelists who are like churning out racist books or something. Really the only conservatives who get published by the big five publishers are, people like Mike Pence, Jordan Peterson, people who already have huge platforms. So yeah, it's really become this super weird insular culture, but one that doesn't really show signs of slowing down. Like a few months ago, the New York Times did a story about a romance novel that got canceled before publication because people had screenshotted passages from the romance novel in which a fictional character says he's really been inspired by Elon Musk. He like really thinks Elon Musk's a smart guy. And people found that so problematic that the book has not seen the light of day, and they actually canceled the whole series.
Hey, did you know only half of you watching are subscribed? If you're enjoying the content, hit the subscribe button to keep the videos coming. Thanks. Wow, that's interesting. I remember I watched, I think it was the first or the second season of Discovery, Star Trek Discovery, one of the worst shows ever. And that was before Musk started trumpeting Trump. And they had Elon Musk in there, and I was just surprised by that. Okay, so it must have something to do with the power hierarchy. It must not merely be a progressive narrative. It must be if it portrays African Americans in a certain way or anybody assumed to be of a marginalized identity. Is that correct?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it must.
So that's a lot of it. But I mean, I think in the same way academia keeps coming up with sort of like new definitions of racism and sexism and whatever. I've seen books that I'll give you an example of one. There was this young adult novel that came out a few years ago. It was a few months before it was supposed to be published. It was a fantasy novel, and it was set in this fantasy world where there's slavery, but it's not slavery based off race. It's like a colorblind society, and people said that in and of itself was a form of cultural appropriation, and that it was colorblind and sort of anti-black to be depicting slavery that wasn't African American slavery. So like obviously like you're scrunching your eyebrows because like you have a thinking mind.
I'm just trying to process that. It's just so crazy. It reminds me, there was I think it was in the first season of Battlestar Galactica, the old show. There were, I think it was the Cylons, the machines. I don't know if you've ever seen the show. It's a wonderful, wonderful show. And I think this was in the age of pre-woke. And they led people down in chains who were not even human. And the whole thing had nothing to do with, I mean, it wasn't even on Earth or anything.
Sure.
And evidently some people who were in chains were black, and people were absolutely losing their mind that this was racist. And there were no, these were machines. They're like, they call them toasters. But, okay, so I'm still trying to get my mind around that. Cultural appropriation. Okay. Well, I'm just trying to think of all the things one would have to believe that, in all the ways that someone's thinking would have to be damaged before they could come to that conclusion. And then I'm trying to think of the fact that that was institutionalized in our academies, in our publishing houses. And then I assume these same people are still in control of these publishing houses.
Yeah, so I'll just stick with this example I'm telling you about because I think it's a kind of synecdoche for the industry as a whole. So this author, she herself was...
Oh, great word, by the way. Great word.
Yeah, it is a great word.
Yeah.
So this author, right? She's first-time author. She's Chinese American, was born in China. She was actually writing this fantasy novel because she was familiar with sort of indentured servitude and stuff back home in China. So it was kind of an allegory in that sense. She wasn't thinking of African American slavery. So it's 3 months before this book is supposed to come out. People start tweeting at the publisher, Penguin Random House, saying this is anti-black. This is stealing African American culture. And one of the people who's involved in this mob is this guy, Kosako Jackson, who himself is an author and a sensitivity reader. So he's paid to make books more sensitive.
Sensitivity reader. I just love that.
Yeah.
I just love that. Sorry, go ahead. Finish the story, and then I'm going to ask you about that sensitivity reader thing. That's awesome.
Yeah, so he's leading the charge against her. The publisher ends up canceling the book. They send it to sensitivity readers. They release it like 3 months after it's supposed to come out. Now, the funny thing is this guy, Kosako, his debut book was coming out a few months later, and the same thing happened to him, which is people went after him and started accusing him of Islamophobia or something, and his book never saw the light of day.
Oh my God, that's so perfect. So I've been having conversations about that. It's like smoking and getting lung cancer. It's just perfect. There's something beautiful about that.
Yeah, so his book never saw the light of day at all. And I was watching that to me, that was you know, there's a lot of examples like that, but because it was like a sensitivity reader who's again like doing it for the big houses, who even he like I guess can't figure out how to write a book that doesn't like piss off this like insular group of people. You
Well,
know, are not,
it would be a book with blank pages.
yeah, essentially. I was in conversation with Coleman Hughes last week and I was joking like I wanted to create a
Oh,
board
we just did
game.
an event with him. Yeah.
Yeah, at the Comedy Cellar.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm a big Comedy Cellar fan. Yeah, no, I was
Oh,
talking about
good.
I wanna make a board game just called You're a Racist, and it's like every move somehow leads to you losing the game and being called a racist. So, like, your point was, you know, I'm watching this sci-fi show and there's black people in change, that's racist. This woman writes a story in which there's no black people in slavery, that's racist. But that's kind of how things operate, and, like, one thing that I think is important to sort of remember is, you know, South Park aired a few weeks ago. In their first episode, they declared like woke is dead. Cartman's pissed that, you know, he can't make fun of woke people anymore. I think woke is dead for sure in certain corners of society. Like it's certainly dead in the Oval Office. But when you go to like the English department at Yale, when you go to Penguin Random House in New York City, like it's the same
Yeah,
people
those are
running the show. It's the
yeah,
same.
they're fetid sewers.
Yeah, like
I want to
it's
talk
not
about.
going anywhere.
Let's talk about what qualifications does one need to be a sensitivity reader? Because Reed's looking for another job.
Yeah,
What does one
what's
do
Reed's
to be a sensitivity
race,
reader?
ethnicity, and sexuality. So the only criteria is you
Well,
have
we'll
to
put him in a dress. That'll give him some points.
yeah, the only criteria is you have to share a marginalized identity with a fictional character. So if I'm a black dude, I could be a sensitivity reader for a book that has a black character. If I'm a trans person, I could be a sensitivity reader for a book that has a trans character. So if you go on Twitter right now, like there's two ways you'll see the post sensitivity reader. One, it's either a publisher,
Yeah.
an agent, or an author looking for a sensitivity reader. So they'll be like, hey, I'm a white person. I have like an Asian character in chapter 9 of my story. Can an Asian person like read this to make sure I'm like getting it right? Or you'll see
Wow, that's
sensitivity readers.
astonishing.
You'll see sensitivity readers like
Such home.
selling their services.
Yeah,
Yeah.
selling their services. That such homogeneity, like that, just assumes that a person with an identity. I mean, that's just an that in and of itself. But that's what I was talking about all the priors you would need to lead you to that conclusion.
Right.
Like you would have to believe that one person is representative or knows that there's a kind of essentialism to being a certain race or being gay, or whatever it is,
100%.
whatever identity variable one would want. And then that person can capture it and articulate it. But I wonder how it's matched with people who just self-describe, because that's embedded within the ideology. But the good thing is if you don't buy into the law of non-contradiction, it doesn't matter if you're a hypocrite or anything, you can just make shit up along the way.
For sure.
So I just find that to be, that sensitivity reader thing to be absolutely fascinating. Okay, so the publishing house, let's you know what I'm a big fan of? I'm a big fan of like naming things. They
Yeah.
don't like to do that in a lot of other countries, New Zealand, and they're much nicer than we are. But let's name these cesspools. Let's name them. Penguin, Random House.
Yeah. So it's all the
Hachette
big five.
published my last book. Are they in the, like, give me the big
Yeah.
five.
Yeah. So big Penguin, HarperCollins, Hachette, Simon and Schuster.
Oh, Hachette's
and
publishing my former book.
yeah.
They're in an ideological rot, a cesspool as well.
Yeah. So it's kind of like I assume that your imprint, whatever imprint you worked with, was probably like, you know, like the one heterodox imprint or conservative imprint, whatever you want to call it.
Da
But
Capo.
yeah, so but if you're a novelist, right? I mean, the people who run publishing are overwhelmingly liberal, to a kind of astonishing degree, which is why, like, you know, I have 4 degrees in English. I couldn't name you 5 conservative novelists who are writing right now. I can name you maybe a couple who came up in like the
Wow.
90s, like Bret Easton Ellis. But you know, there's a reason they're not getting published, and the reason is the same reason, you know, certain people are never going to be hired at Yale or Harvard or whatever. But, you know, I think it makes sense why the universities have gotten so much attention that they have, in part because they're publicly funded. But the stuff that's going on inside the publishers, it's a big deal because like those are the books that everyone has access to.
I mean, I'm trying to think of a positive in this. I guess the positive, in a weird kind of way, is that people aren't reading as much. And so they wouldn't be subject to a uniform ideological homogeneity, or they wouldn't. So, I mean, obviously it's good if one reads books on the left, books on the right, books in the middle, books with no wings, no leanings, books with weird green or. But given that that's not the case, it's probably better that people don't read at all, at least books.
I mean, I think
Or
reading
they
is,
go to the classics. Or
yeah,
they go to they just read the classics.
yeah. I
But
mean, you
why
could
would
read
you
the
why would you want to read anything if you know that everything is of a similar ideological orientation? And if you read long enough of books of a similar ideological orientation, you would hunker down you'd become more convinced that the stances that you took for certain issues were apodictically true. So it would
for
be
sure.
better to not read at all than to read things of an identical ideological leaning.
Yeah,
If my
no, I
thinking
get.
is in error, let me know.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
get what you're saying. It would be like the same thing if like I don't know, if my whole understanding of economics was from being an undergrad at Harvard and then a PhD student at Yale. Like that's not representative
Right.
of like economics as a whole. Like those tend to be very
Or you
left
only
leaning.
read Hayek. You only read
Yeah.
Hayek thing. But in those cases, you could just go to, you could read Shelley and Byron, and I mean, there's James Joyce. I mean, there's a lot of things you could read pre-ideological capture. I remember I loved
Yeah.
James Joyce. But okay, so we're in a
I will just
catastrophe
I'll note
here.
one thing too
Yeah.
about the classics. So like people are understandably upset and focused on sort of right wing legislative action against books in like K through 12 schools. So like trying to get books removed that whatever have gay characters or are Ibram X Kennedy and stuff. That's a real thing. But the way the left sort of does this, so there's nonprofit organizations. One, for example, it's called Disrupt Text, and they will try to get classics removed from the syllabus and replaced with like contemporary DI sort of novels instead of say reading Mark Twain. And the thing is when they can't do that because a lot of school budgets like are they have shit budgets and they have to sort of teach the same books over
Yeah.
and over again. So like in cases where you can't kick Shakespeare off the syllabus or can't kick off Ernest Hemingway or whatever, people will do what they call like disrupting the text. So they'll teach teachers how to teach, say, Othello or whatever, but do it in a way that's like anti-racist or feminist or whatever. So, so then like the study of literature just gets reduced to like taking a social justice framework and then like pointing out how the text,
Mm,
whatever, doesn't live up to that, or maybe it's a good old text and
mm,
it does something feminist or whatever. But as someone who likes reading and likes stories, it's like really disheartening when you see these accounts from people online who are like, I'm a seventh grade teacher and like this is how I teach Romeo and Juliet, or this is how I teach Hemingway or Milton. And it's just kind of like the most dumbed down, sort of morally in your face, didactic way of teaching a great book.
that's really a shame. It's heartbreaking in a sense. Kind of reminds me of that meme. Remember what they took from us.
Yeah.
The meme on the right, and it's just so obvious. I just think that there's something in human nature that's inherently censorious, and there's something, I don't know. I just find this whole thing disturbing because reading is so vital for one's fundamental education. That's why I keep saying maybe we should just go back to the classics. I don't know. If you had a magic wand and you can wave the wand to fix this problem, what would you do? The problem
Yeah.
being ideological capture in publishing houses.
Okay. I would wave my wand and I would disconnect the internet of Roxane Gay. That's a joke, but she's actually someone who recurs in like a number of controversies that lead to a book getting canceled or what have you. More
Boy, she's a
serious.
total lunatic. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
she spends a lot of time online.
I mean, I've never heard her say anything or write anything of substance. It's pure ideological drivel. It's not evident. It's anti-evidence based, but she
Yeah,
has the right identity markers,
for
and
sure.
so people latch to that, seeking some kind of sagaciousness or some kind of weird wisdom that in these bizarre platitudes that she offers, unhinged platitudes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you wave the wand. What do you do?
Yeah. Obviously, like, the ideal solution would be, and I think it's similar of academia, is like the political composition of these big publishing houses would be more diverse. Like, I don't mean like it has to be a 50-50, whatever, progressives, conservatives, but I think the madness that has gripped these institutions that are publishing all our books, whether it's nonfiction or picture books, a big part of that is it's just such an echo chamber. And when you're constantly around, everyone is left of center, everyone is trying to look left of center, it just creates these neuroses, where if you had like an actual contingency of conservative editors, of agents, of what have you, one, there would be a much broader diversity of books, not just nonfiction, but fiction, children's books. But a lot of the stuff that ends up getting institutionalized in these places, it just wouldn't get institutionalized because there'd be enough people who would be like, no,
Yeah.
this is insane. We're not doing that.
I just want to linger on that for a second. It's so crazy to me that it is unbelievably obvious to anyone, to even a midwit, like anyone with a half a brain cell, that surrounding yourself with people who are ideologically, if not identical, very similar to you, that traps you into a way of thinking about the world that will almost by necessity increase the likelihood over time that your beliefs will be false and that you'll be less capable of revising them. And it doesn't matter what the ideological, like what the pool, the pond in which you're swimming, the ideology in that pond, it could be Islam, it could be anything. It's just so obviously true for anyone who's thought about it for literally 20 seconds. It takes nothing. But yet nobody wants to change that. And I mean, it's just really interesting to me that people don't see that. And I guess maybe I think one of the reasons, and I'm just spitballing here, but is because they have a vision of the way they want the world to be. Particularly the left does this. They have a vision of the way they want the world to be, and they will put out content that aligns with that. I just wrote a piece about the media. Conservatives are upset that people are, for Substack, are using the term teens when almost invariably it's black teens. And they'll put out a vision of how they want the world to look, and they think that people will align themselves and move toward that vision. And so it has a strong moral component that they're trying to discharge when they do this. Okay, so that's if you had a wand.
Yeah.
So that was a great answer. We know that's not going to happen. Part of the reason it's not going to happen is because the people who occupy, particularly legacy institutions, they look at other people as an existential threat.
For sure.
It's just never going to happen. It's never going to happen in academia where that's why I've said repeatedly the whole system needs to be burned down. Okay, and I disagree with my friend Greg Lukianoff on that point. Just had a piece in the New York Times about that. Okay, so that's if you have a magic wand and we're in make-believe land and you can do something. We know that's not going to happen. I should say, correct? We know that they're not going to all of a sudden invite conservatives
I think
and libertarians and.
No, I think the best case scenario is like there are a couple publishers that they're not like the big five publishers, but they're like legitimate contenders who actually do value free speech. So I think first and foremost would be like Skyhorse Publishing, which owns Regnery and a few other imprints. They do not give a shit whether you're conservative or progressive. I have an enormous amount of respect for them. Like, they have published Alan Dershowitz's The Case for Israel the same week they have published pro-Palestinian books. They're in it to, increase the scope of the conversation, and like they publish a lot of big name authors.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce Gilley, I think, is with Regnery. I think Gad's last book was with Regnery.
Yeah. I think I have it above my head. There is Parasitic Mind.
Bruce's or Gad's. Yeah. Okay, we have a situation in which I have my own solution. You tell me what you think of this.
Sure. I can also answer your
Stop buying
question too
books.
about like the non-magic wand
Oh yeah,
solution. Yeah, so
yeah,
one thing,
yeah, yeah. Go ahead, go ahead.
this is a very like literature sort of specific solution, but so a lot of these controversies that lead to books literally being canceled and in some cases like authors having their careers destroyed, they start on this
Mm,
platform called Goodreads. Maybe you guys are
yes.
familiar with it. So it's basically a platform just review
Yep.
books. Anyone can review. But Goodreads has a real problem of, and it's called a Goodreads review bomb. And it's basically when you amass like thousands of people to review a book that often hasn't even come out yet, and you just absolutely
They did
kill.
that to me. They did that to Lawrence Krauss's book too, The War on Science.
Yeah. So one thing you'll notice is these, and it happens on other platforms, but people review books they haven't read yet. So, like, if a book's not coming out for 3 months, you know that these thousands of people have not had access to it. There's a very limited number of advanced reading copies. So, like, if I was running all these platforms, I would create some sort of mechanism where you have to prove that you actually have the book that you're going to be reviewing, like you have an advanced reading copy, the publisher sent it to you. That would like massively reduce the number of just false reviews that get published. And these are false reviews if you're
Can I
reviewing a
pause
book.
you?
Yeah.
Can I pause you? But doesn't that assume that Goodreads is not ideologically captured?
Yeah, no, this still has a little bit of a magic wand to it, maybe just not as big of a one of like
Yes, it
totally.
does. Yeah, okay.
um
A baby magic wand.
Yeah,
Okay.
baby magic wands. But yeah, I mean that's a big fucking problem. So like I've taught English at the university level. If like one of my students came in and said, I didn't do today's reading, but I'm just gonna like start calling this thing racist or something, like that would be insane. I've never, I'd be like that's insane. But online, people actually take pride in not reading the book, so they'll like tweet at Penguin
Right,
Random House and be
right.
like, I haven't read this, but so and so Roxanne Gay said it's really racist. Like you can't let this be published, which is like again crazy to cogent people. But the publishers themselves, like I spent years interviewing these people, they're like scared shitless about that sort of response.
Okay, so again, please push back
Mhm.
on me, Adam, if this isn't correct. So if we know this is the case,
Yeah.
and we know that there are these mechanisms like Goodread or the publishers are terrified, why don't people just stop buying books from the big five and go to publishing houses like Regnery? Why don't they just say, listen, we're just not going to buy any books from it? The publishing industry is in big trouble anyway. It's dying. So we're just not going to buy. We're going to, the market will determine, the market will have a lever. Talk to me.
Yeah, no, I think in theory something like that could work because at the end of the day, the major publishers, despite the SJW sort of like veneer, at the end of the day, they're committed to their bottom line, which is why Jordan Peterson did get published, even though people were protesting 12 Rules for Life. It's why Mike Pence did get published, even though staff was saying don't publish it because they generate money. And right now, the majority of people who buy books tend to be left of center. So they sort of have, the pressure. But yeah, if there was like an organized sort of concerted effort to say, boycott Penguin Random House until they start publishing, I don't know, Christian fiction, or they actually have more than like one imprint devoted to conservative thinkers. In theory, I could see that having an effect, but I think it would probably require some sort of like organized, concerted movement.
I never thought 15 years ago that I'd be sitting in this chair talking to you, telling you I think the major publishing houses should publish Christian fiction.
Yeah, I know. I'm not a Christian, if that was not
But
apparent,
but
but
yeah, but no, I have no idea what you are. But that's the situation in which we find ourselves, that intellectual diversity. And so I struggle because I want people to trust their institutions, but their institutions are simply not worthy of their trust. I mean, I've been saying that for 10 years right now. And so I struggle with, I've kind of given up by and large on many of the institutions, on the academy, et
sure.
cetera. But I would like institutions that are worthy of our trust. But I just don't see that happening. So I think that we have to start supporting those institutions that are worthy of our trust.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
But it is
Yeah.
it's an unusual position for me to be in, to say that the Big Five should be publishing Christian fiction,
Yeah.
being an atheist.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know
Yeah.
my history or what have you.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Okay, so what got you into this, by the way? Why are you fascinated by this? Why you wrote a whole book about? Show us your book, by the way. Show
Yeah.
us your book title, your book cover. Awesome.
Yeah.
Tell us read the title.
Yeah,
Read the
so it's
title.
called That Book is Dangerous: How Moral Panic, Social Media, and the Culture Wars Are Remaking Publishing. So
Awesome.
yeah, so I got into
What
this.
got you into it?
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been like a intellectual freedom, academic freedom, comedic freedom.
Good for you.
Even when I
for
couldn't
you.
sort of articulate it in those terms, like I'm 35. I came of age, I was like 13 when 9/11 happened, and I still remember being like viscerally pissed off at, I was 12, 13 when like my favorite bands were being pulled from the radio station because like they were unpatriotic. So like Rage Against the Machine, System of a Down, these like far left bands. That like I grew up at a time when it was very clearly like the Christian right that was the ones trying to like muzzle people in the arts. But yeah, it was, around the sort of great awakening period that, I started seeing this shit on college campuses, and then started noticing it in publishing where it's like I'm reading whatever, the Atlantic or the Post, and they're doing a story on like a picture book that's been pulled from Amazon. And a lot of those early stories, I think people do feel a bit more comfortable sort of criticizing this stuff now, even in the legacy outlets. But like when you look at like the journalistic reporting from that period, it's usually done in like a very sympathetic way, where it's like, whatever, this young adult novel represented slavery that was not African American slavery, it's anti-black, we should cancel it. And honestly, at like a personal level, it was just sort of pissing me off. And my question was kind of like, if this is what I know about as someone who's a reader of books, not someone that works in publishing, I'm not an author, I want to know what's going on behind closed doors. So I spent a few years just interviewing as many people as I could.
Awesome. A few things, few final questions.
Yeah.
Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
You should ask me about fat bodybuilding. I used to teach that essay in my my culture wars class at Cornell.
You did? Did you really? Before you knew it was a hoax, or what?
Oh, dude, I'm like
I'm
an OG fan of the Grievance studies hoax. That show was so funny.
Thank you.
Yeah, I used to compete in powerlifting and bodybuilding and stuff. So, yeah, I remember when that happened. That was absolutely hilarious. So yeah, I usually teach that article, and I think it was like Yasha Monk wrote a piece that was pretty good about like sort of.
In the Atlantic, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of that.
Oh, thanks, bro. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So what was the students' reaction to fat bodybuilding?
Yeah, so I was just to give you some context, this was teaching at Cornell in like the past few years. I used to teach a course called Culture Wars, where we kind of like explore wokeness, we explore like Christian right-wing censorship. My students, they were always like highly sympathetic to what you guys were doing, and thought it was it was kind of weird because you think Ivy League students like. Yeah. They're super woke, whatever. I mean, there's probably selection bias in terms of like the students who are enrolled in my course. But yeah, no, I've seen Ivy League kids like literally laugh out loud at that one, or reading like Yasha Monk's summary of rape in a dog park or whatever that article is called. Yeah, no, that was masterful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I can assure you that many people did not have your response. That's good. Well, cool. Okay, so is there anything you wanted to ask me that in the few remaining minutes we have?
I was always,
if not, that's cool too.
Yeah, no. I was always genuinely curious how you sort of ended up friends, acquaintances with James and Helen, and like how like what were like the steps leading up to actually like we're gonna spend our time writing 8, 9, 10 fictitious papers. I never
20.
really sort of like understood the origins story of that from you guys.
Well, that's a much longer story, but let's see how I met I met Helen. I remember I did an event with Dawkins a long time ago. He mentioned Helen Pluckrose on stage, and I was reading the stuff that she wrote, and I thought it was just so principled and so clear and so methodical. That's how I first heard of Helen. And for my first book, I can't remember, I kind of out of the blue called James Lindsay and had a question for him. And then we developed a relationship. And then I wrote the foreword to, I can't remember the exact title, like Everybody is Wrong About God or something. Wrote the foreword to that. And then we had an insanely productive, like we were hyper prolific in our writing endeavors, like to a crazy degree. And I have to say, I think part of that is because he has no ego, aside from his Twitter personality, which we'll just completely leave to the side. He has no, like, he just wanted to produce good work. And I could say anything to him, like, dude, this is shit. And he'd be like, okay, or what have you. And we would just, we cranked out, and we were getting published all over the place constantly. And just of note, that would enrage my colleagues. We would bang out a piece in a few hours and it would get published. By the way, the only piece we never got published, and I don't mean that to sound arrogant, I say that descriptively, not evaluatively, is we published a piece on the importance of vocational education, and nobody would publish it. Nobody. We redid it as an op-ed. Nobody would publish it. It's the only thing we never got published. And then I was at a university I will not name. That's how I refer to my former university that I will not name. It was just overtaken by utter derangement. I mean, like pathological derangement of completely crazy midwits. And so, long story short, we had the idea for the conceptual penis. And we were going to do this. Yeah, we were originally going to do it, I think, potatoes are sexist or potatoes are racist. I can't remember what it was. And then we punched it into some search engine, and somebody had already written a paper about potatoes being racist. So then, like, shit, we have to come up with a new idea. And I think we came up with the idea of that penises there's a conceptual penis. So we published the conceptual penis, and everybody, like, truly, people lost their minds about it. Like, they went crazy about it. And fortunately for us, I've told this story before, but very quickly, fortunately for us, they said to us, this paper doesn't do what you think it does. If you really wanted to prove your point, you've got to do X, Y, Z, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and they just laid it out. So I called them up on the phone. I'm like, dude, they just literally given us a roadmap. Let's see if we can do it.
Yeah,
Let's see if we, now, of course, the key to this whole thing is none of those people who gave us this roadmap to prove it, when we proved it, actually later said, oh, wow, maybe there is a problem. Maybe the scholarship has been corrupted. Maybe we need to take a look at peer review. Maybe we need to be more honest about ideological capture, or none of those considerations played into it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we brought Helen on. We started the project, and we brought Helen on, and her role expanded. And then Mike Nana did a film about it, The Reformers, from the beginning, which is a fantastic film.
Yeah.
But that was my and I'm still close friends with Helen. My son was just at Helen's in London, and I haven't seen Jim for a while. He's doing his own thing, and I'm doing my own thing. I'm traveling a lot, so
cool.
Travel 365 days a year now.
Cool. Are you mostly like speaking, doing those sorts of engagements?
Yeah, speaking, doing events.
Cool.
I love it. I mean, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's challenging. People always ask me, like, how do you travel so much? And I think the key is you have to be in one place for a long period of time. That's the key. Because if you're in one place like 2 days, it's just exhausting.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So we had a great. The only harsh word I've ever had with James Lindsay, was when he sent me a paper that was the poetry paper about the menstrual huts and whatever. And I'm like, dude, don't waste my time. This is like a 0.00001% chance of getting published. I can't believe you said it. It's the only harsh word I ever had with him. And, I was completely wrong. He was right. The paper ended up getting published. But we never had still to this day, I've not had a harsh word with him or Helen, or actually, I don't think Reed and I have ever had a harsh word. So, yeah.
Very cool.
I mean, that's a thing. What happens when you're friends with virtuous people who are interested in what's true.
Yeah. I have one more question for you if you have time.
Anything.
So one thing that I've been thinking about, so like, again, accepting the premise that wokeness is very much alive in academia and publishing in the New York Times, et cetera, like there's certainly going to be more cancellations, disinvitations, things like that. That's still a problem on the one hand. On the other hand, I think a lot of people, myself included, who are sort of intellectually interested in studying this stuff, there's not really like a lot more, I think, to think through. Like, I'll be honest, like
there's no there. There's no there. It's just banal and uniquely stupid.
Yeah. So, but my concern is like, if people similar to like, I think there was a wave where people were very critical of like political correctness in like the 90s, and there was op-eds about it and stuff. And then people sort of got bored with it. Like, there's not really much to talk about here. I think that can give the misimpression that it's not still a problem if you're no longer seeing like articles about crazy students at Harvard or what have you. And I'm not sure if that's something you've thought about. It's not really a question, just something I've been thinking about a lot.
I'm kind of extracted from that space. Like, I don't think about it. It's going to die on its own, or wilt might be better. And I think that what's interesting to me is culturally, ideology, beliefs, why people believe what they do, mass interventions. I'm letting I guess the thing that's frustrating to me is so many people now think, oh, I'm so brave, I'm so courageous. When Reed and I were at ARC a couple years ago, the kind of the smugness that so many people have. But where were these people years ago when this stuff was flourishing? They remained silent. Ran into a guy on the street just the other day, just said, hey, thanks for this video. And he was talking to me, and he was saying, like, I'm really sorry I didn't say anything. Like, I should have said something and I didn't. And I'm like, well, I mean, what do you want me to do? But I don't think about I really don't think about this stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it's just too stupid. There's just no anything that could have been said. Andrew Doyle said it. I mean, scores of people. Lindsay said it. Helen said it. We know the solutions. We know the problems. But to me, what's interesting is why people believe what they do and how to give people tools to help them clean up their epistemology at a basic level. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the things that Reed and I are working on right now, this street epistemology and giving talks and trying to engender a way, trying to help people value having civil conversations and really being honest about why they believe what they believe and what's true.
Right.
Seeking truth, wanting to know what's true. Right. So that's our mission. Wouldn't you say so, Reed? Yep, he's nodding his head. That's what we're doing. We're bringing epistemology to the world, son.
Yeah, hit me up if you're
cool.
Ever in Madison.
Awesome. I said I went to Marquette, so I used to go there for Halloweens, and it was amazing. Adam, where can people find your work?
Just Google my name. Yeah, I'm not on social or anything, so.
Spell your last name for us.
Yeah, it's S as in Sam, Z as in zebra, Etela.
All right, thanks, Adam.
All right, thanks, man. Appreciate it.